This podcast contains material that may not be suitable for everyone, including but not limited to adult language and situations. Under 18 should only listen with adult consent. Listener's discretion is advised. Hello there, I'm Carlos and welcome to High on Paranormal. Now, I hope you can join me in a quick mode while listening to today's story. And, well, I got my bowl packed up, I got something to drink, so I won't keep you any longer, and let's go ahead and start with the first story. I need some help interpreting what me and my girlfriend experienced last night. So, I just moved in with my girlfriend's dad and stepmother. I'm from the US, and for a while, me and my girlfriend were in a long-distance relationship. I just recently moved to Sweden, and just about 3 days ago now, I've started staying in a spare room in my girlfriend's dad's house. The first night I was here, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I heard the sliding door to the storage room connected to mine rattle back and forth on its track, and slightly tapping the wall. When I walk up to the door, and I could see it slightly moving back and forth. Now, my room is downstairs and it sits on the ground, so I chalk it up to vibration somewhere causing the movement. I checked the room, and then opened and shut the door. After that, I went back to sleep and assumed the noises stopped. The next day, me and my girlfriend slept through the night without any incident, but in the morning I found a torn salt pocket on my dresser with some of its contents on the table and floor. I asked my girlfriend, but she swears she hadn't put it there, and I don't see why anyone else would. The weirdest occurrence was definitely last night. I'm typically a skeptical person, but I know I felt the presence of something last night. My girlfriend woke up early in the morning to head off to school, and before she left, she said she saw something last night. I remember her waking me up in the middle of the night and complaining that I wasn't giving her enough space. According to her, when this happened, she saw a black figure standing at the edge of our bed. She said that she thought it was me at first, and she was trying to figure out how and when I stood up so quickly. But when she realized that I was on the bed, it seemed like it had almost crouched to pick something up, and then just turn around and walk away before disappearing. She said she went back to sleep because it felt non-threatening, and it wasn't worrying her at all. But after she left for school, I went back to sleep for a few hours. I had a quick bout of sleep paralysis, but the sensations I had during it were very strange. I mean, I experienced sleep paralysis before, but never anything like this. I felt unable to move and I could barely breathe. Now, the weirdest part of it all is that I literally felt something laying on top of me, caressing my face and running my fingers through my hair. At first, I was relaxed because I thought it was my girlfriend. Like, it literally felt like my girlfriend. But once I realized that, she already left for school, that's when I really started to panic and I really couldn't breathe anymore. It felt like the force was imposing itself on me. It was almost angry that I was upset. And it almost felt like I was having a fight for control with this entity inside of my own head. So once I regained control of myself, it felt like I literally felt the energy detach from me and race away in the direction of the storage room. I quickly took a glance at the room around me and saw nothing, so I went back to sleep on the account of the fact that I was really tired. When I woke up, I started thinking about it a little bit more, and now I'm really scared because I have to sleep alone tonight. Basically, I'm just looking for advice or an interpretation. I know my girlfriend said it felt non-threatening, and for me, it did, at first as well. But it appears to me that it was literally trying to mimic my girlfriend, and my girlfriend had mistaken the entity for me. To me, it almost feels like something evil trying to present itself in a form that it knew each of us will feel comfortable with in order to trick us. I'm going to smudge the area with sage or palo santo, but I won't be able to until tomorrow or this weekend. Not looking forward to sleeping alone tonight, or any of this night that I have to do that for that matter. Well, this is by Money and Drugs, and I mean, in Mexico, they call it, or in Latin America, I believe mainly in Mexico, they call it the sleep paralysis. It's actually translated to the witch climbs on you, or the witch climbed on you, or the dead climb on you. And so basically it does, a lot of people do believe to be just a bad entity. If it's a bad entity, usually they do come in as non-threatening, to be able to try to just set themselves in there. You know what I mean? Like be able to just get more of a hold of you before they start going with whatever it is that they do, which is usually not a good thing. So starting with a sage and that, I believe would be a good idea. Maybe look into the history of the house itself. There may be something there. But, you know, the main thing I would recommend is just do some research on it. Maybe have a paranormal group come and take a look, but not just the regular average group. The ones that tell you, yep, there's something, bye, we help you. No. But, you know, somebody that it actually knows what they're doing, and that you can talk to them and they can give you some insight without you having to spill all your guts. That to me tells me when somebody actually knows their thing. You know, they can sense it, they can see it and all that without you having to give them all the details and whatnot. So hopefully you'll be able to find somebody like that around there in Sweden. Hopefully we'll have a listener who has an idea of what may be going on. And I'm assuming that you just want to get rid of it, not to be interacting or try to figure it out, the past and be friends and all that stuff. So if anybody has any information, again, just reach out to me and we'll pass it along. My favorite, most terrifying sleep paralysis story. All right, so I've had sleep paralysis episodes for a couple of years now. And at this point, I've learned to live with it and see what new shit I can do with it. The story I'm about to tell you happened about a year after I started having them. So it was about my fifth or sixth one at that time. The first two times it occurred, it was terrifying. I saw this tall shadow figure with the whitest dots for eyes you can imagine. We're pretty cool now, but man, he scared the fuck out of me at the first couple of times. Bro was so extra standing in the corner, being directly above my face. As I was stuck, you could insert a nervous laugh. This happened for a good couple of months in different areas of my house where I slept. Bedroom, couch, etc. Well, around the fifth or sixth time, can't remember, that it happened, I got fed up with being frozen and trying to move my body. You know, those rides where they spin you around and you try to move your neck, but you can't. Something like that. I wanted to do something about it. I wish I hadn't. From the beginning, so I get into this SP episode, the sleep paralysis, and I'm very alert. I tries to move myself when I'm asleep, and I was at the edge of the bed, so my position was as such during this sleep paralysis episode. I can still remember my entire thought process. I'm getting chills writing this, laugh out loud. At that moment, I'm thinking, just roll over, hit the floor. And roll over and hit the floor is exactly what I did. It was such a rush. I felt the floor. Shit, it hurt like a motherfucker. But it felt good. I got some control over my body. And now I felt like I had strength to crawl to my door. Now, let me tell you, every crawl felt like 10 years of labor and my body resisting me moving. But I did it. I crawled to the door. I tried opening the door with a very quivering hand. It dead ass felt like I was trying to open the door a solid 2 minutes. I was able, though, after a lot of perseverance, insert nervous laugh, crawl my way all the way through the floor. And on my way there, seeing the couches and everything in the living room, it was familiar, so it wasn't like an episode. I mean, I felt chairs and the cold floor and everything around me, so, this was during Christmas time. The next part genuinely terrified me. Standing next to the couch and chairs was not just one shadowy figure, but 6. I made the connection quickly. I have 6 family members. These motherfuckers are trying to traumatize me. And as I saw them, everything came back to reality and I woke up in a cold sweat that morning. Stepped out of my room and then lo and behold, my whole family, all chilling in the living room. So that's basically the whole story. I had many other SP episodes, but that's the one that I'll never forget. What the fuck do they mean? Are they angels, demons, spirits, or any other supernatural being trying to contact us and telling us something? Who the fuck knows? They could be signs, or they could be completely pointless. I deadass had an episode one time, and it was just a cow chilling outside my window. I wish I was joking. Laugh out loud. Anyway, enjoy. I would love to hear similar experiences. I'm totally down to share more. I have a decent amount of quality episodes. And have a great day. Now, this is like the first time that I come across somebody saying that they were able to get moving while in a sleep paralysis, but still within it, all of the effects of it. I did get a little bit confused about going into the living room and seeing everybody and the whole thing, but all of a sudden you are like back to reality and woke up. So was that moving that you were doing for real, or was it just in your head? Because if you were literally moving that way there, I'm a little lost in that part, but that's the thing with sleep paralysis. Like, you never really know what's going to happen, but it always seems to have some of that shadowy figure holding on, standing by, something like that. And like with the story that we have from the other Redditor, it seems to be one of those 3 shapes, standing around, on you, or, just the shadowy type things. I don't know. Anybody has any idea of what this could be? I mean, I do love the fact that King Pineapple 322 is actually trying to make the best out of a bad situation by figuring out what else could he would do with it to not be a victim, literally. So that's really awesome. If you have any other info, King Pineapple, let me know. I'll be glad to pass it along. Or any other experiences that you may have and want to share. Real scary story. Did not use without my permission. This happened to my great-grandfather when he used to work at a small shop in Pakistan. It was somewhere between 1900 and 1930. I never got to know the exact year. The shop was in a rural village. It was very far from where he lived, and so he had to wake up at around 3 a.m. to get to the shop at 7 a.m. You can obviously imagine how dangerous it could be going through the forest at 3 a.m. to get to a village, but that's not where the horrific things happen. One night, he realized he was running late, but he had to make it to the shop exactly at 7 a.m. or he could get fired. So he took a shortcut. He went through the cemetery. At first, the cemetery seemed completely normal as he went in, but slowly he started hearing voices behind him. Not just normal talking voices. He also heard some kind of demonic music and partying. He wanted to look back, but his gut told him that he would be killed by the spirits if he did. He just kept walking without looking back. Eventually, after about probably 2 hours or so, he made it to the shop. He told my grandfather that he always thought there was something recognizable about the voices, almost as if he had heard them before, but couldn't pinpoint where. Now, thank you, You Got Nerve, for sharing this story with me, allowing me to be able to publish it onto this podcast for the story. I have to admit, though, I don't know if that would be paranormal or just, people. And, I mean, it is 100 years ago that it happened. I can only imagine that, being about halfway through a desolate area within forests and stuff, you won't find that many people in there. But at the same time, we always know that there are tribes and so on that may live in the outskirts, especially in areas like Pakistan, like nomads and stuff. So I don't know. But the reason I still uploaded and wanted to use it is because simply it was shared as true, passed down as a true story, and we're gonna take them by the word. So okay, this is a moment for us to take a quick commercial break. Your chance to go to the bathroom, refill your bowl, get a drink, or just go on a full-on attack on those munchies. He passed away a month ago, and now he visits me all the time. A month ago, I had to deal with probably the hardest passing I had to deal with up to this point in my life. My once best friend and ex-fiancé overdosed on fentanyl and passed. We broke up a little over 5 years ago due to his addiction. I'm not one to ever has or ever will use drugs, but sadly he fell down that path. We did not end up things in a bad note, however. After years and years, 6 to be exact, of attempting to help him get over his addiction, including but not limited to rehabs, clinics, therapists, support groups, etc., I just could not take it anymore. I could not stand the lies. I could not stand the bullshit. And most of all, I could not stand watching him kill himself. It was his addiction that just really helped me understand the famous saying, if you truly love someone, sometimes you have to let them go. That is exactly what happened. I was afraid. I was enabling him by saying that if things didn't change, I will end them and not act on it. Now, a little background. Right before we broke up, I gave him an ultimatum, which was either to make a real effort to change, or, I wouldn't be able to continue with this. And he gave me one of the most honest answers that an addict could ever give. I want to change, but I can't promise you that I can. And I understand where you're coming from with respect to your wishes, as I completely respect it and I want the best for you. As hard as it was to end things, we did. And at this time, I was living 100 miles away from him because I was in college, and I thought, he had a lot of his property in my apartment. He stayed with my parents. And because he had a bar job there, which really was where he would get his drugs, he drove down to have this conversation. But it was after midnight when he arrived. I asked him to take his cat, gave him my ring, and said I will pack his stuff and arrange for him to come back and get the rest of the stuff. He agreed. We cuddled for about 30 minutes, talked for a bit. And so at this point, I couldn't. So he grabbed his cat and left. One of the last things I told him before he left was to never let me get the call that he died. He laughed it off and told me that would never happen. After that, I never saw him again. His mom called me a few days later and said that he went into inpatient and will be coming down to grab his stuff when I was ready for her and his dad to do so. His family and I got along wonderfully, and we still do. So, I was happy to have him come down, and we arranged for it to happen. As I was loading their truck, his mom and I were talking, and she thanked me for everything, as well as reiterated that she did not blame me a bit for leaving. She prayed that he would get clean and live a full life, to which I agree. I told her I don't want to get back with him, but I want him to see him live a happy and full life. I hope that we can be friends again, like we did one day in the past. We both moved on. I met an incredible man at school, who I am still with today. He met another sweet woman, who he had a kid with, very sweet. Sadly, they did not work out. However, he dated multiple sweet ladies, including the one that he was with when he passed away. I will periodically get a text from him, and though I would reply, I was definitely not the talker between the two of us, because I would never have wanted to give him false hopes, we will get back together or anything like that. Because I would hear through the grapevine periodically that he was still using, which in his social media pictures, you could see that, and it supported it because of how his face looked. Now, this is where things get weird. On December 16th, I got the call I feared. Our friend from Hawaii, where we lived for 4 of the 6 years we were together, called me up to tell me that he overdosed and was in a coma. What was crazy was that I turned off my Facebook Messenger notices a few weeks earlier because I was getting so many notifications. Yet, before this call came in, his brother and sister-in-law tried to message me on there, of course, and I didn't get him. Our friend said he was flying out to stay with his family and go see him, so I told him we will talk when he gets here. The next day, our Hawaii friend texted me and said his mom said that there was no sign of brain activity, but they had more tests to run. It was this night when things started to get weird. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. from a dead sleep. I felt him leaving. It was a feeling I never felt before, and I knew right there and then he was gone. I knew he wasn't going to come back. The next day, I called a few other people who knew him in Hawaii. They did not know what had happened, to tell him that he was in a coma and we were not sure if he was going to make it. As I was talking to one of these guys, I suddenly felt that I was about to get the call that he was officially dead. And within 2 or 3 minutes, I had another call come in. It was his brother-in-law. I answered and I said, "Is this the call?" He mumbled through his tears, "Yes, I'm so sorry." I said, "Okay, thank you. I love you, bro." He told me he loved me too, and we hung up. That night, I woke up at 3:30 a.m. from a dead sleep. I heard his laugh clear as day in the living room. He had a very unique laugh that I could recognize. I could not go back to sleep. I was in tears. I knew he was there. Later that day, my boyfriend and I started to pack for a trip. We were getting ready to go on the following week for Christmas, and my boyfriend had his Spotify on. And it eventually started to play random songs that were similar to his playlist. 3 of my favorite songs that my ex will play, he was a musician, came in a row. It tripped me out so much that I went and restarted the playlist midway through the third song. The next day, I went to the store to grab a couple of last-minute gifts and toiletries for a trip. As I was in the store, the same 3 songs that were played the day before in the same order started to play. When the third song came on, I just dropped my items and left. That night, I woke up from a dead sleep at 3:30 a.m. again. But this time, it was because I felt someone sit at the end of the bed. I knew he was there. The next day, my boyfriend and I flew out for the holiday trip. We landed in Vegas because it was the closest airport to our destination. I had never been to Vegas, so we toured the strip before departing to our destination and was having so much fun. Then what started playing in one of the casino's speakers, the same 3 songs in the same order. I was completely freaked out. I could not believe it. The day was getting ready. As the day went, we were getting ready to head home. My boyfriend's brother was driving us to the airport, and guess what comes on the radio? The same 3 freaking songs in the same freaking order. By this point, I already accepted it was him. His funeral was the day after we got home, which I went to. His family was happy to see me. Our friends from Hawaii was happy that I was there, and many of our mutual friends were there and were very happy to see me. All in all, I was glad I went, and it was very hard. I had a couple of nights where I slept through the night. Then he started to appear in my dreams. The first few I shrugged off as, part of my grief. The third time he appeared in my room, I could not dismiss it as grief. He kept telling me that I need to try hard cider with whiskey. As we said in a recording studio with 2 of my other friends who have passed away in previous years. I kept trying to tell a group outside of the room something through the loudspeakers, but kept getting interrupted by my ex and our other deceased friends. When I woke up, I could not stop thinking about the drink. I reached out to my friend from Hawaii who was staying on his family's farm later in the day and asked him about, without any context of it, "Do you all have a thing about hard cider and whiskey?" He laughed and he was like, "Yeah, bro, why?" That was not a thing I knew about. And it was definitely not a thing when me and my ex were together, so I was mind-fucked. But I was like, okay. After this, I started to wake up every night at 3:30 in the morning until last night. Last night, I had the craziest dream of them all. My ex and I were in this random hotel room in Vegas talking. He then started to ask me about my current boyfriend, but not in a way that he was uncomfortable, more like he wanted to know more. I told him how happy he and I were and that I think we were the best thing that ever happened to each other. He smiled and told me he was happy for me and that all he wanted was for me to be happy. He asked me if I would lay down and cuddle with him, though I said I would, but nothing sexual because it was not fair to my boyfriend. He said okay, and we did. He whispered in my ear and told me that he will always love me, always be happy, never give up, and to change the world. That's when I woke up. Today has been a rather crazy day. I have been presented with 3 incredible opportunities out of the blue, 1 academic and 2 professional, all of which I am considering and taking the next steps to apply for, and all of which will allow me to build on my life-saving research project. In addition, I get a random message on LinkedIn from someone asking me if my current employer is hiring, which I verify, and they are. I cannot say that this was him or if it was all in my head, but somehow I feel a sense of peace. I feel that he always cared for me, and I always cared for him, but we were on 2 different paths in this world. I don't feel scared, and I don't feel alone. I have my best friend back, and part of my old group back. I mean, they're just spirits, which I'm totally okay with, and in some ways almost happier because they're always there with me. I know some may dismiss this, but my story will bring a sense of peace to others. Death is not the end. It's just another form of life. I do not understand it, but I do not fear it. All I know is that having my spirit home is badass, and though it sucks that they died, I'm glad that they're around me. Something wants to come in. So, I live in a house in a quiet neighborhood where the only people who go out to your house are the people you know or people working. That being said, no one goes to your house at night for any reason. The last 3 weeks, I've been having someone or something knocking on my door windows in the middle of the night and having the doorknob of my front door jiggle like someone is trying to turn it. We live across the street from my in-laws, who have cameras pointing to where you can see my house. We checked the cameras but never saw anyone around the house when the knocking happens. It has been happening more often, and it started to happen during the day as well. I always look and see if I can see anyone without opening the door, and again, I never see anyone. But today I heard it at the back door where the blinds were up, and I could not see anyone standing on the back door when it was knocking, so I went and checked anyway. I heard the door jiggle and stop, and the locks, which I always keep locked, were unlocked after I had already checked probably some 30 minutes beforehand. Now, I can't help but think that whatever is knocking wants to come in. I have seen a shadow figure around the house, but he hasn't done anything to anyone in my family. Mostly just moves things. But I never see it near where the knocking happens. Kind of like it stays in the room. So, me and her had a little chat on Reddit, and basically she states that this is by Baked Nymph 2019, and just 3 days ago on February 7th, she wrote to me again and said, so the knocking, what I've done is that I've saged my house inside and out, salt around the outside. But if anyone has any ideas, I'd like to hear about it. And I also got a dog, which she barks at things that aren't there. So I asked if she can go into more detail with the dog. She's a puppy about 3 months old, and she's used to kids, so mine don't bother her. But at times, she's walking around, she will stop and just watch a spot before barking. Then takes off in that direction, growling, and will stop. I walk off like nothing happened, and walks off like nothing happened. She's done it almost every day, at least once. And so, in this case, this is pretty interesting to me because there's really no way that we can get just a camera video because it's just going to show an empty door. I asked maybe to see if there's a camera that it shows the front and inside at the same time, the outside and inside at the same time, but I haven't gotten an answer back to see if maybe we can catch the sounds of the knocking as they're happening. But if anybody has any assistance, please let me know, and that way I can pass on the info to her. You can do it either on our Facebook group, High on Paranormal, or you can just reach out to me on highonparanormal@gmail.com. I'll make sure to let her know what recommendations are given and keep you guys up to date. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Don't forget to follow this podcast so that you don't miss any new episodes. You can also search for PKDK on your favorite podcast player for all the other shows that we have. Now, if you have a story or experience you would like to share, or if you have any ideas or suggestions for some of the situations the listeners are going through, you can send all this to pkdkpod@gmail.com or join the Facebook group by searching High on Paranormal. Finally, this program was created by me, Carlos Aguirre, in association with Aguirre Language Services, where long-lasting business relationships are created through amazing customer service, impeccable quality, and 24 hours availability at no extra cost. Talk to you soon.